Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 324. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today I'm going to talk about how to manage your time and manage your energy so that you can keep overwhelm from becoming burnout. So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately because, as I've mentioned in my newsletter emails, I've been really busy and I'm going to be really busy for the next month or so. And this is a result of stuff that I planned, stuff that has been in my calendar for months, things that kind of got added throughout the year, and then other things that have just kind of compounded into this really, really busy month of really important stuff. So I wanted to talk to you about how I'm managing my time and how I'm managing my energy, because I think I'm pretty good at time management, and I hope that the strategies that I've been putting in place can help you. And as always, if you have any suggestions or ideas for things that I haven't mentioned here, please feel free to reach out and share them with me. I really love hearing other people's strategies as well. So, let's start out by talking about what are the differences between stress and burnout and overwhelm, in my opinion. Obviously, everyone's going to have their own perspective on this, and there are always a ton of different definitions for everything. So when we talk about stress, and I think we all know what stress feels like, but what is it? When we talk about feeling stressed or experiencing stress or being stressed, we're generally referring to the mental, emotional, physical impact of the things that are going on in our life, stuff that we need to do, the things that have happened that are beyond our control, just life stuff and its impact on our lives. So it's our body's responses to the pressures of these situations or events. When we have a lot of stuff going on, when we have a lot of things to do, when life is happening and we're feeling stressed, sometimes we'll reach a state of overwhelm where we just don't know how to deal with our workload, with life's responsibilities, and with just life. To me, there's a difference between overwhelm and burnout. Overwhelm is when you get to the point where you're just like, how do I deal with this? I've got so much going on. What can I do? Burnout to me is when you've passed that point and you're just mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted. And to me, burnout is something that you experience as a result of excessive and prolonged stress and overwhelm. It's when you didn't stop and reevaluate things when you were at the overwhelm phase for whatever reason. Sometimes we just are doing the best we can and we can't manage it. And we reach that point of burnout. And when we reach the point of burnout, that's usually when it's really serious and we need to stop and take time off from life, often take, mental health days off of work or business and just stop and recover. So ideally, we don't want to get to the point of burnout. And burnout is something that I've talked about on the podcast before, and I've had guests on the podcast. The fabulous Jane Morris, who was a guest on this podcast years and years and years ago. Episode 22, Jane wrote a book on Burnout to Brilliance, and she was on the podcast for episode 22 talking about how to go from burnout to brilliance. So that's another really great episode to listen to and to get her book if you feel like you're already at a state of burnout. I hope you're not, but if you are, stop and read that book. It's really fantastic. Not too long ago, I also did an episode, number 293. It was a solo episode on how to get back on track and get shit done after illness or burnout. So sometimes when we've recovered from burnout or illness, we're feeling better, but we've kind of fallen out of our usual routines and we need to start creating new routines and kind of not necessarily get back on track, but forge a new track for ourselves moving forward so we can start taking action and getting stuff done and doing the things we want to do in a different way that will not put us on a track to another burnout again. So those are both useful episodes to listen to, and I will link to those in the show notes. So now that we've identified what I think the differences are between stress and overwhelm and burnout, you might want to stop and think about what are the differences for you. So what does stress look like for you? What does stress feel like for you? What does stress sound like to you? Maybe journal on that. And then do the same for overwhelm. How do you know when you're on overwhelm? How do you know, what does that look like for you? How do you know when you've reached the point where you're just, not knowing how to deal with life's workload, responsibilities, all of that? What does that look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And then burnout. Have you ever reached the state of burnout? What does that look like for you? What does it feel like for you? What does it sound like for you? How do you know when you're approaching burnout? How do you know when you're in the middle of burnout? And what is it like for you to recover from burnout? These are all things that you can journal on, and I think it's really useful to journal on these as a part of knowing yourself, because when you know yourself, you can make better decisions for yourself. When you know what stress is like for you, then you can take actions in place for dealing with that. When you know when you're feeling overwhelmed, what that looks like for you, you can put a plan in place. And the same for burnout. So the more you know yourself and the more you know what these stages look like for you, the more you can prevent reaching overwhelm and burnout by managing your time and your energy appropriately. And appropriately is always what's right for you, because what's right for me may or may not be what's right for you. So how to keep overwhelm from turning into burnout? How to prevent overwhelm from turning into burnout? So again, I've got a lot going on, and I'm going to share with you what I've been doing, what plans I've been putting in place to stop myself from getting burnt out, because I'm really, really conscious of how I manage my time and how I manage my energy. So when you get to this point where you feel like, oh my God, so many things are going on, I don't know what to do, how am I going to handle this? So that's the point I was at a while back when I looked at my calendar and I thought, So I'm actually going to scroll back through my calendar as I kind of tell you what's been going on. So starting at the beginning of September, I walked the South Downs Way. So for 9 days, I walked 100 miles. That was fantastic. I had that planned months in advance because that was really the only week in the year that I could do that, when the temperature was good and when I thought the weather would be decent and when I actually had time in my calendar. So that was kind of what kicked off this whole busy period. And then I got back from that, and that following weekend, I had my plant spirit healing apprenticeship weekend, and that was fantastic, but that always takes a lot of energy out of me. Following weekend, I was at an event for 3 days, which also, that's very kind of draining on my energy, and it took up, a lot of time. Then family got here, and they're going to be here for 2 weeks. While they're here, I'm also going to have my plant spirit healing apprenticeship again, because there was only a 3-week break between weekends this time. Then, the same day that family leaves, I fly to Atlanta for the She Podcast's podcast conference. And I'm going to be speaking on that. So it's not just going to attend this event. I'm speaking. My presentation's already done. I've got the slides and everything. I'm working with someone else on this talk. We've got it all together, but it's more than just attending a conference because we are presenting there. Then I get back from Atlanta, and then that Thursday, I've got an important event. And then that's the kind of the last end of my whirlwind month. It's actually more like a month and a half because it started the first week in September and it ends October 17th. So I have kind of paused adding anything to my calendar until after Monday, November 21st, which is the Monday after things kind of start cooling off. So hopefully, I'll have a few days to recover, relax, get back on track, rest. I've kept, the next few days after the 17th free in my calendar. I've got some exercise in there, kickboxing stuff. But aside from that, I'm keeping that weekend mostly free. As I said, starting with the week of the 21st, that's when I'm adding stuff into my calendar. So I've got a couple of podcast interviews that I've signed up for. I'm starting to get back into healing with my craniosacral sessions that I was receiving. I've got a webinar that I'm doing based on the talk that Amanda and I are doing at She Podcasts. And then, life will be kind of getting back into normal that week. So, as I said, one of the things that I did was I stopped, printed out that month's worth of calendar, looked at how little time I really had, evaluated everything, and I planned my strategy. So, made a list of all the stuff I had to do, identified my priorities, and this is the important thing. You really need to get everything out of your head and onto paper or a file on your computer, but have it somewhere where you can see it all in one sheet, all the stuff you need to do. And then you need to mark that list in terms of priority. So you can either have like 1, 2, 3, top priority, medium, low priority, or whatever makes sense to you. But it's very, very important to identify which things are high priority and which things are low priority and can perhaps wait. Next, you need to identify non-negotiables, things that you have to do that only you can do. So maybe mark those with a symbol or a color or highlight them or something like that. And be honest with yourself. A lot of times there are tasks that we think only we can do, but really other people can do them. So, things that you can do that you have to do that only you can do. I'm looking at my calendar, my plant spirit healing apprenticeship. Only I can do that. I can't send someone in my place to do the learning for me. That would be impossible. Other events like the talk that I'm giving at She Podcasts. Yeah, I could back out of that, but that would be shitty. So really only I can do that. Other things like, answering emails, stuff like that. I could delegate some of that stuff. I could postpone it. Other tasks I could pass on to someone else. I could get an assistant to help me with them. Lots of stuff can be postponed and lots of stuff can be delegated to someone else. So be willing to ask for help. So start thinking about that and really be honest, like I said, about what are the things that only you can do. Next, identify the date when things start to lighten up in your schedule and life gets back to normal. So for me, it was that event on the 17th of October. That is the last big thing that I have. And after that, life gets back to its normal routine. And I can see that easily because I time block everything into my calendar it's all color coded. If you're not time blocking your life into a calendar, I highly recommend that you do so. I use Google Calendar. You can use whatever's right for you, but it's really important to have something that you can block out the stuff in your schedule so that you see what your day looks like. I know a lot of people use planners for this, like where you handwrite them out. I think that's really clunky. If that works for you, fantastic. But I need to have things where I can set up recurring events and then drag and drop things and move stuff around. I don't want to be erasing stuff on a printed planner. That doesn't work for me. Might work for you. If it does, go for it. So then, again, you're going to look at your calendar and you're going to time block the highest priority actions. Look at all the stuff that only you can do, that you have to do, and that you have to do like urgently or soon. If you can time block them for after, like when things start to cool down for you, do it then. If you can't, look at where you can reasonably fit them into your calendar and be honest with how long it's going to take you to do each task. If you have to answer emails and you know how long it takes you to do your daily emails, be honest with that. Don't say, I'm going to scrunch it down to an hour and get everything done in an hour. Maybe you can, but maybe you can't. Be honest with yourself. If you have to take your kids to some event, don't just block out time for their event. Block out the time it's going to take you to get there and get back and all the other stuff you need to do to prepare for it. So be honest with how long it's going to take to do each task, because if you underestimate the time, it's only going to lead to more stress. I was once talking with a friend about podcasting, and she was saying how she never manages to have time to do podcasts. And she said, it's just a half an hour each week. And I said, no, it's not. I do a half-hour podcast each week, and I block 2 hours in my calendar to do it because I have to think about my topic, I have to research my topic, I have to make notes on the topic, to make my bullet point list of what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say it. Then I've got to record it, which takes, about a half an hour. Then I have to do the show notes. So it's not, a half-hour podcast is not a half hour. It's about 2 hours for me. Sometimes it takes less, but I block out 2 hours in my calendar every Monday to do this. Again, it might be dragged and dropped to another day. If a certain Monday is crazy, it might take less time, in which case, after I'm done, I adjust it in my calendar. It might take more time, in which case I also adjust it. But on average, it's 2 hours. I know that, and I do not, I take that seriously. I don't try to pretend it's going to take less time than it is, because I know that's how long it takes. So underestimating how long a task is going to take will only lead to more stress when it takes longer than you planned. So don't squish something down to make it fit. Then you're going to look at all low priority tasks or medium priority tasks. See if you can get help or support from friends, family, a virtual assistant of some kind. If you've got a dog and you need to walk the dog, ask someone else in the family to help you with it. Hire a dog walker if you can afford it. Get help somehow. Ask for help. Pay for help if you can. You don't need to walk the dog if you can get someone else to help you with it. Maybe get a neighbor to help. Just for this time when you're really got an intensive schedule. Next, time block all of this low priority stuff in your calendar in the future once things settle down. So for me, after starting the 21st of October, that's when I scheduled all of my podcast interviews. That's when I've scheduled other stuff, other tasks that I needed to do, stuff that I need to get done for my books, future workations. None of that's going to be happening until after October 21st because I am too busy. It's not necessarily low priority stuff. Obviously, workations are important for getting my next book worked on, but it's not urgent. And it can very easily be put off. And again, time block, being honest with yourself about how long it's going to take to do this stuff. Do the same with your emails. So I use a plugin called Boomerang for Gmail. And I use that to bump low priority emails into the future once things settle down with my calendar. So you could maybe, if someone emails you something and it's something that's going to require like doing something like a task or thinking about something and you just don't have the headspace, you can always reply to the person and say, thanks so much for this. I'm, really busy right now. I'm going to have the time and the headspace to deal with this on XYZ date. And then you send that email and then you boomerang their email into the future. So it comes back into your inbox once you have the time and the energy and the headspace to deal with it. I use Boomerang a lot. Every single day, I've got a certain amount of time blocked out to look at my emails. I start on the highest priority emails. The lower priority stuff, I boomerang out into either tomorrow or in the future so that I can deal with it when I have the time, energy, and headspace to do so. Next, hold off on making decisions for certain things if you can. So, my kickboxing winter course. I don't need to do it because I'm not going to be grading in winter. I can't grade until next summer, but I would like to do the winter course. But I don't know if I have time to train for the winter course. So I'm holding off on making that decision until I have the time, the energy, and the headspace to do so, which is after the 17th of October. Realistically, I'm not going to make that decision until the week of the 21st. I know what things I need to do to start training again, so I'm going to start thinking about adding that stuff into my calendar if I can, but I'm not going to be upset with myself if I can't. So I need to start doing kettlebells. I need to start doing running again. Might have time for that. I might not. If I don't, it won't happen. I'm not going to be upset with myself because I'm not going to make the decision about the winter course until the week of the 21st of October. Next, learn to say no to things that people ask of you. You don't have to say yes for everything. This is a massive life lesson that a lot of people need to learn. A lot of people are afraid, and I've been this person in the past, of people not liking me or being upset with me if I say no to things. Saying no is a really important skill to have. You can say no, or you can say not now, but later. So again, I've put off a lot of things until late October because I just don't want to add more things to my calendar. So again, there's some things like podcast interviews where I've said, sorry, I can't do that now, but I can late next month. So either say no or say later to things if you don't have time. Don't feel obliged to say yes to everything. I could do a whole podcast episode on how to say no to things. Maybe I should. This has been a huge learning lesson to me. Basically, it's about boundaries, setting and upholding boundaries for yourself. And I have talked about that a lot in the past. Finally, practice essential self-care. And I've talked a lot about self-care recently, and I know a lot of people feel like, oh God, self-care, that's just another thing to add to my to-do list, which is why I'm saying practice essential self-care. So get enough sleep, drink enough water, eat healthy foods, period. Don't force yourself to add extra things like meditation to the calendar. So a lot of times when we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, we think, oh, this is when I should meditate. And so you add another thing to your calendar. If you have the time, if it happens, great. Fantastic. If not, don't beat yourself up for not doing it. Focus on the essentials: sleep, water, healthy foods. Sometimes adding one more thing to the calendar, like meditation, even though it might help you feel better, you might be so much more stressed about having this extra thing in your calendar that meditating is going to be not good for you because it's like another source of stress, even though the few minutes that you're actually meditating, it might help. So again, if it happens, great. If not, focus on the essentials. Get enough sleep. There's a time in my life, this was my last year of university, where I was working on my senior project and I was applying to grad school and I had all my regular class workload and I was really, really busy. And I just thought, I don't have time to do all this. I just don't have enough hours in the day. And so I thought, well, how could I add more hours to each day? And I thought, well, I could go to bed 2 hours later at night and I could wake up an hour earlier. It was either that or the other way around. I'm not a morning person, so I think it was wake up just an hour earlier and then go to bed 2 hours later. I'm really good at getting stuff done at night. So I thought, that's fantastic. That way I can sleep 3 hours less and add 3 hours to my day. Fantastic. And so I started doing that. And I was getting stuff done. And I had a longer day. But I wasn't getting enough sleep. And I've always been one of those people who really needs my 8 hours of sleep, or at least 7 hours of sleep. So it got to the point where I wasn't sleeping enough. I was falling asleep in class, which had never happened to me before. And at that point, I realized my plan wasn't working. So sometimes when we give ourselves permission to get enough sleep, 7 or 8 hours a night, that will make us more efficient. It will allow us to use our time more efficiently. It will allow us to use our waking hours to get the stuff done that we need to do. Sometimes waking up early and not having enough sleep means that we'll have more time, in theory, to do the things that we need to do, but we'll be less efficient. We won't be using our time as wisely because we won't be able to focus because we're exhausted. So again, essential self-care: enough sleep, enough water, healthy foods. When you're really busy like this, may not be time to start a new fasting routine. Keep doing what you're doing. Try to eat healthy foods. Try to remember to eat on the schedule that's good for you. So I fast for 23 hours, eat 1 meal a day, most days of the week, usually Monday through Friday. Sometimes on the weekends I'll have a couple of meals. Now that family's been here, I've been having 2 meals a day. Yesterday I had 3 meals. That was weird. For me, it's normal to eat 1 big meal a day. For most people, that's not normal. So do what's right for you. Fasting gives me energy. Fasting gives me focus. So that's what I'm continuing to do when I can, while family is here and while I'm in this kind of busy phase. So do what's right for you as always. So I'm going to wrap this up. I hope this has helped you figure out how you can manage your time and your energy levels to avoid burnout and to manage overwhelm. So again, throughout all of this, as you're going through this busy period of your life, this busy phase, pay attention to your energy levels and adjust as needed. This is important. Nothing is set in stone. And that's why I like using an online calendar as opposed to a printed calendar, because I can drag and drop and change and adjust and recalibrate as needed. On the days where I'm not as focused, I just move stuff around. I was looking at my calendar for this week and I've tried to plan as much stuff as I could get done earlier in the week so that I can get that done and then have more time in the rest of the week. But, it's all adjustable. So again, adjust as needed and try to spend a minute or two to tune into yourself in the morning, afternoon, evening, and adjust your schedule as needed. Again, nothing's set in stone. You can adjust things. So do what you need to do to recalibrate your schedule to avoid burnout and manage your stress. So I hope you found that interesting and useful. If you have any strategies that you would like to recommend to me that I haven't talked about today, please feel free to drop me a line and let me know. You can email me at holly@hollyworton.com or find me online and get in touch there. Thank you for listening. You can find the show notes at hollyworton.com/324. And as always, the transcripts for previous episodes are live. I've got everything live up through episode 321, I think at this point. Probably 322 will be there by the time this goes live. So, thank you again for listening. Thank you very much, and have a fantastic week. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollyworton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.